Indiana men's basketball defeats Rutgers 84-74, but suffers a huge loss in the process.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, thank you so much for being here. Shout out to all of my everydayers out there, whether you are an everydayer, you've been here a few times, or this is your first time. Thank you so much for being here and a part of Locked On Hoosiers. More names to know in the transfer portal for Indiana football. Some of these are your suggestions. Some of these are names I've started to hear a little bit more. All of that on the football side for the Indiana Hoosiers in the transfer portal. We're going to talk about the Malik Reneau injury because Indiana defeats Rutgers 84-74, but they suffer a huge loss of Malik Reneau. We're going to talk about Malik and what that means and where Indiana goes from here. If we get any updates, how long could he be out? We're going to get to all of that as we go. But I do want to start with the game itself, that Indiana was favored by 7.5, according to our friends at FanDuel. And not only did Indiana win this game, heck, we covered and we won by 10, 84-74. And this was a weird game, right? It was one where you saw two talented teams go at it, but you saw two talented teams who were not at 100%. We saw with Ace Bailey, oh my gosh, we're going to get to him in just a second on the incredible performance that he put on there in Assembly Hall. But you saw, right, that Rutgers was down one of their other best players. Rutgers has two dudes. We talked about them in the episode yesterday. They're a two-man show. If you can stop them, you got a good shot with Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper. Well, Dylan Harper was supposedly battling illness. I think that's legitimate, and he did not play in this game. And of course, Indiana came into this healthy at the start, and then Malik Reneau goes down on friendly fire within the first minute or so of this basketball game, and he was out and did not return with a lower body, what appeared to be the knee injury. So you saw two teams who were not at their 100% best in terms of health-wise, and I just think you saw Indiana's talent come through. You saw the depth come through. My goodness, you finally saw the shooting come through for this Indiana team. And the three ball was the only reason we were able to take down Ace Bailey from Rutgers, who dropped 39 points on the road in Assembly Hall. Unbelievable, some of the shots that guy was hitting. 16 of 29 was Ace Bailey. He had 8 rebounds, had 4 blocks, and 39 points. Am I happy that Indiana gave up that to one particular player? No, I'm not. But I'm okay with the fact that you basically said, let's make somebody else beat us, and then you gave up on that because Ace Bailey was just that good. More on that strategy in just a second as well. But I was really impressed by what Indiana did offensively. Of course, Malik had just the 2 points. He went down early and did not return. Your leading scorer was Myles. I think that was massive. I think you had to have that for Indiana. You also had 17 from Oumar Ballo, who I think came back and responded very, very well against all the criticism, against all of the hate, against all the noise from myself and a lot of you and a lot of us as Indiana fans, right? I'm not excluding myself from that category. I was very much in that boat of this is not acceptable if it was a disciplinary issue for Oumar Ballo. Loved his response in what he was able to do in this game against Rutgers. Again, you had 21 from Rice. You had 17 from Ballo off the bench, technically, right? You had Mackenzie Mbako with a quiet 16, another poor shooting night for him. He tends to shoot the ball quite a bit and just doesn't make them as much as I'd like. Trey Galloway had a good 11 points. Loved to see Luke Goody start to finally knock down some of those shots, man. Some of his early ones didn't look good, but he went 3 for 5, and all of those are from downtown. You also had 5 from Anthony Leo, including the crazy turnaround banked in 3 at the half, which, crazy enough, I think gave Indiana the sort of boost that we needed heading into the locker room. 3 points from Cannon Carlisle. He really struggled in this game. 1 for 7 from the floor, and then 2 points again from Malik Reneau. Overall, I'm happy with the win. I'm happy with the win. I had asked you on yesterday's show what your confidence level was going into this game, and I told you that mine wasn't very high, right? I told you that I was not overly confident in Indiana winning or being able to pull out a win in this type of a matchup. Didn't know that Dylan Harper wasn't going to play, but we also didn't know that Malik Reneau wasn't going to be able to go for very long either. And so with that happening so early and having somebody like Ace Bailey go off for 39 points, I'll take the win. I will absolutely take the win for Indiana. I will say this. If Ace Bailey did that to us at Rutgers, if we were on the road and that happened, there's no way we win this game. No possible way. Because I saw something from Indiana tonight that I don't think I've seen all season long. And it was down the stretch in the second half when Oumar Ballo really started to get his feet underneath him, when he really started to get engaged with the game offensively, but especially defensively. Man, I saw passion from this Indiana team. I saw effort. I saw heart. I saw grit from this Indiana team. And that's something I just haven't seen a whole lot of from this squad in particular. And I think there are several reasons for that. I think a lot of them being transfers is a big part of that. I think the poor play recently has been a part of that. But man, you fought and you won this basketball game against a Rutgers team that is extremely talented, but they have just very little talent outside of Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper. And again, you ended up having a defensive strategy of let's throw a double team at Ace Bailey and make somebody else beat us. It just didn't matter. That kid could go play professional basketball right now, and he would be just fine. But I'll take it. 84-74, Hoosiers beat the Scarlet Knights of Rutgers in the Big Ten restart. Indiana now 2-1 in Big Ten play. But of course, the big story, how long will we be without Malik Reneau? We're talking about that and what it means for this Indiana team. Coming up next, right here on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. You can bet on, in terms of football, how many field goals are going to be made? Who's going to score the first touchdown? Will there be a sack? How many interceptions will a quarterback throw? You can bet on all of that if you go to FanDuel. So not just betting on who was going to win, but so many different props and a whole lot more. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. All right, welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much again for being here, making this truly your first listen or your first watch every single day. For those of you that are listening on the audio side of things, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, you name it, I appreciate you being there. And hey, if you name it, we're probably on it for Locked On Hoosiers. And so be sure that you are subscribed if you can. You've got those notifications turned on, following, leaving 5-star reviews. All of that really helps us out on the audio side. And for those of you watching on YouTube, be sure you're liking the videos. That gets it out there. More people can find it. More people can grow here in the Locked On Hoosiers family. Also, be sure you're commenting down below. I want to hear your thoughts. Indiana wins 84-74. I know you've got thoughts. Let's drop those down in the YouTube comments. And then if you have not already, subscribe to our channel. I'm asking you to do that. It helps us grow. The numbers are growing and just, rapidly expanding each and every day. And so thank you so much for doing that and being a part of this Locked On Hoosiers family. Indiana wins 84-74. They beat Rutgers. They're now 2-1 is what we are in Big Ten play. But it has a huge asterisk on this win, right? You get the win, you cover, you win by double digits, you hit threes like crazy. More on that in a second. But you lose Malik Reneau. And the question right now is, for how long? How serious is it? When can he come back? Will he come back? I mean, all of those are questions that are being asked. And as of right now, this is right after the game that I've had this recorded for you. We don't really have a whole lot for you. And I don't expect there to be a ton until they get in there and kind of take a look and see what's happening. Thankfully, it was just a bump to the knee, friendly fire. He was able to get up, was Malik Reneau, and walk off under his own power. And he came back out to the bench, had a bag of ice, and seemed to be in okay spirits. Seemed to be okay, seemed to be talking and active and engaged with the game. And I think that that's a huge part of having positivity here. I guess I should say those are positive signs for Indiana and Malik Reneau. But I'm no doctor, so don't take it from me. I have no idea. Until they tell us what's going on, what his timetable is, then we can only speculate, and we're going to keep that to a minimum. But we will play the what-if game. And the question is, what if Malik Reneau can't come back, or how long will he be out, and what does Indiana do in that time frame? I'll keep it simple. I think we'd be in trouble. I think Indiana will be in big trouble if we don't have Malik Reneau, because you can make the argument, and I would be one of these people, he's the best player we have. He is Indiana's best player when he's on the floor and not in foul trouble, is Malik Reneau. He's one of your best offensive weapons. He's one of your best defensive weapons. He's one of your best transition weapons. He's just that good of a player, and he is that important. He's big in size. He is big in terms of his presence in the paint, offensively and defensively. And if you don't have him, you are now limiting yourself, or you are limited as a team and a roster to Oumar Ballo, who again played great in this game against Rutgers. One of his better games that I've seen, just from an overall performance standpoint, by Oumar Ballo. 17 points, 12 rebounds, 7 of 13 from the floor. Free throws weren't great, but I mean, he's a 50% free throw shooter in his career anyway, so it is what it is. But he played one of his better games after I called him out. I did, and a lot of you did as well. And I really liked to see the response from Oumar Ballo here. He's going to have to step up if Malik Reneau can't come back for an extended amount of time, or any amount of time. I don't care if it's just a single game against Penn State or the rest of the season. Oumar Ballo has to step up and be the version that we saw in this game for the rest of the year, or however long that Malik Reneau is out. You also, outside of Oumar Ballo, you then are having to rely more on Mackenzie Mbako to be a big man, Luke Goody to be a big man, Langdon Hatton to be a big man. And that's not where you want to be if you don't have to be, right? You don't want to put those guys in that situation and try and, quote, replace Malik Reneau. You can't do that. You're not going to be able to replace a guy that is your go-to weapon offensively. You're just not going to be able to do that immediately. So you're going to have to share the wealth and spread it around a little bit. And that's why I was so impressed with this win for the Hoosiers, because that's exactly what we did. For those of you that watched the episode yesterday, I talked about finding an offensive identity for this team. Indiana wasn't pretty at all times, but it got a lot better. They moved the basketball. They moved without the basketball. Back cuts, used the baseline, set effective screens, and they found the open man. And at the end of the day, Indiana knocked him down, right? That's something that this team just has not been able to do for years, is shoot the ball effectively. Notice how I didn't say just shoot the three ball effectively. They just haven't been able to shoot, or we haven't been able to shoot the ball effectively at all. And overall, we still got outshot in terms of just field goal percentage. We shot 39, they shot 44. But from three, we hit 12 compared to their 6. We went 12 of 27, good for 44% from downtown. You're going to win ball games doing that. You will win basketball games if you shoot 44, nearly 45% from downtown. And there are two ways to go with this. Okay, there are two ways to go with this argument that I think a lot of fans are going to fall into. You can either say, well, hopefully we continue to do that. Hopefully Luke Goody found a spark, and Myles Rice found a spark, and maybe Cannon Carlisle can get it going a little bit. And all these guys that knock down threes, maybe they started to figure it out. McKenzie and Baco, right? Maybe they all just hit a spark. It's all contagious, and we're going to be a better three-point shooting team than the third worst in the conference, which is where we were heading into this game against Rutgers. Okay, that's one path you could go down. The other path that you could go down is, I could hear fans saying, man, I hope this doesn't get to their head. I hope we don't start just chucking up threes in every game, thinking that we can shoot 45% every single night. We're going to lose if we do that, right? Can't you hear it? And I think a lot of you will fall in to one of those paths, one of those categories. And I'm not saying that's wrong. Not saying it's a bad thing. I just think that's where a lot of fans are going to go. And we hope that this just creates a spark, and that this is a trend, and that Indiana, maybe we're growing as a team and starting to knock down open shots. Mike Woodson's talked about it. He says they take good shots, we just don't make them. So maybe we are turning the corner and figuring out how to make our shots when we're open. But we can't fall into the trap of thinking that we're a 45% three-point shooting team, because we just know, you and I, we know that this team is not. But that does not mean they can't be effective. That does not mean they cannot be good. And guess what? You're losing 15, 17, 20 points a night from Malik Reneau if he cannot go moving forward for however long, whatever extended amount of time. So you're going to have to make up for that somehow. And I would love for that to be from behind the arc and grabbing tons of offensive rebounds like you did in this game against Rutgers. That will help you do that. Jimmy Dykes says this all the time. He's one of the best color commentators on ESPN. He says the best time to shoot a three is off an offensive rebound. And that's what Indiana did in this game. You out-rebounded them 48-36 with your second best rebounder not even playing in the game. And you out-rebounded them offensively 18-7. That is what you're looking for if you're Indiana. Your shooting percentage was solid. Your three-point percentage was solid. Really good, actually. Your rebounding numbers were dominant, and you did not turn the ball over but 8 times. I'll take it. All day long, I'll take it. Indiana wins 84-74. They suffer a huge loss with Malik Reneau. We'll see what that is, or how long that is, and what the impact is of that moving forward as Indiana looks to play on the road on Sunday against the Nittany Lions of Penn State. All right, coming up, final segment on Locked On Hoosiers. We'll flip to the football side of things. There's some more names I think you should know about in the transfer portal. No, it's the dead period, but things are going to get going crazy here in just a little bit. We'll talk about that in our final segment coming up right here on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions that you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? It happened to me. I'm telling you, I've been telling you about Rocket Money and how they help me. I'm not kidding. Save hundreds of dollars a year. I went in and have come into 2025 and I've said, look, I have to save money. I've got to do the best that I can to save up as many dollars as possible. And I started with Rocket Money, and their subscription tracker is what helped me do that. It's the easiest one. Get rid of stuff that you're paying for that you don't know you're paying for or that you're not even using. It happened to me, and Rocket Money can help you with that as well. They're a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together all in one place, whether it's your subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year in 2025. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions. I'm in that category, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions to reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. And talked a lot of basketball on this episode. Do want to wrap it up with a little bit of football conversation. And just a couple of more names that I want you to be aware of in the transfer portal. Some of these, as I said at the forefront, some of these are guys that I've had my eye on, and some of these are names that you have suggested in the comments and on social media that I've seen kind of floating around. And a lot of them are in the positions, of course, that we believe Indiana still needs to fill, right? The offensive line. Some say receiver, possibly even at the defensive back spot as well. Talked a lot about that on yesterday's episode. So a couple of names that I think you should be aware of that, again, have been in the rotation in terms of Indiana. This does not mean that they're coming here, doesn't mean that they're committed here, doesn't mean they're visiting here, doesn't mean any of that. Just names I think you should be aware of as of right now for Indiana. Justin Terry, the West Virginia offensive tackle who signed with West Virginia in 2024 and is already in the transfer portal in the 2025 cycle. He was the class of 24. He is 6'5", 338 pounds. This dude is absolutely massive. He plays outside right tackle. It's what he played in high school. And I mean, he's just a unit. 6'5", 338. Is he a work in progress? Yeah, probably so. He was good enough to get recruited and signed with a Power 4 school. He's still good enough, I think, to play, or I guess sign and play for a Power 4 school. Good thing is he has a ton of eligibility remaining. He had 1 year in college. He brings all of that coming to wherever he goes. He's raw, but I think he could be really good. And just the size on this young man out of Ohio, 6'5", 338 pounds, Justin Terry from West Virginia. Another name that I've seen floating around, same state, same school. How about that? Another Mountaineer, Traylon Ray, the sophomore wide receiver from West Virginia, who in 2024 caught 28 balls, 426 yards for 4 touchdowns. Let me say those stats again. 28 catches, 426 yards, and 4 touchdowns is what Traylon Ray had for West Virginia. He's out of Tallahassee, Florida, just a sophomore at 6'1", 195 pounds. Indiana and his name have begun to float around together. And nothing official yet, nothing really happening in terms of this really moving forward in a major positive direction. But somebody that I have seen, again, out there who has entered quite a while ago and has sort of been under the radar a little bit for a guy that caught a few touchdowns this year. Again, 426 yards. Somebody that has experience, but also has years of eligibility. And if you watch this podcast or listen to this podcast, you know that I love players that fall into that category, that fit those standards, who have played, they've been around, been on the locker, been in the locker room, been on the sidelines. They've been there. They know what the expectations are at a Power 4 program, but they also bring years of eligibility. This is not a young freshman. This is not a super senior. He is kind of right there in the middle for whatever program he decides to go to. And I love these types of players. I do. In 2023, he caught 18 balls for 321 yards and 3 touchdowns. So in his young career, 7 touchdowns and a little over 500, about 550 yards for Traylon Ray. So another receiver. So keep that one in mind. And then one that we talked about yesterday that I still want you to keep an eye out on because people keep asking about offensive linemen, and rightfully so. Remember, Tyshawn Wyatt, the James Madison offensive lineman, 4-year starter at James Madison, is visiting Indiana. So keep his name in mind as well. You obviously has the ties to Curt Cignetti. He's got the ties to what Indiana has here now. And a 4-year starter anywhere on the offensive line is legit. All right. He's 6'4", 318 pounds. I don't care that it's not Power 4. Indiana just needs bodies. Indiana needs dudes. They need flesh on the offensive line to protect Mendoza in 2025. You've got to go get several of those guys. I think Tyshawn Wyatt has a pretty good chance to become an Indiana Hoosier. Also, again, mentioning earlier, Justin Terry, the West Virginia offensive tackle. We'll see if that goes anywhere. But just a few names, again, that I think you should keep an eye out on. I think there are more in the works. I do. I think there are more in the works. I think some positions have been filled pretty well. Talked about a tight end yesterday from Tulane. Also, I feel that the running back spot has been taken care of. Obviously, quarterback, your starter, has been taken care of. And so I still want to see offensive linemen. I want to see receivers, and I want to see DB. Edge as well is in that list. You could kind of mix all those positions up and rank them however you want to, but those still have to be addressed. If you're Curt Cignetti and Indiana in what is a tough time because you've got the dead period, but you also have teams who can let their players enter now that they're being eliminated from bowl games and the college football playoff. And it's pretty crazy with classes starting now. I mean, the calendar's broken. There's no doubt about that. But I think Indiana's still putting in the work and doing what they need to do, trying to address the issues and fill the gaps, fill the holes that they have on the roster for 2025. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana. I am having an absolute blast, absolutely having fun. And you are a big reason for that. The show is growing like crazy. The new year's off to a hot start and can't wait to see what the rest of the 2025 year has in store. Indiana basketball back in action Sunday, so watch out for a possible reaction episode. Then we're back with full episodes on Monday and back to a normal schedule as the holidays are over, back to Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, free to you wherever you get your podcast. All right, have a fantastic weekend, Hoosier fans. Until next time, stay safe. I'll talk to you later.